Welcome to the Impulse Spotlight, a podcast for product development professionals. In this episode, we talk with Brady Schroeder, an avid outdoorsman with an advanced background in product design. Brady Schroeder grew up on a farm in northwest Ohio where he had daily chores taking care of the farm animals and whatever else was required to keep the farm running. As such, he learned much about machinery, how things work, and he developed a general curiosity about everything, which led him to pursue mechanical engineering at the University of Toledo. After graduating, he moved to Los Angeles to work in the aerospace industry while completing his master's degree in mechanical engineering at California State University at Northridge. Brady has a broad background in product development with 30-plus patents. His development background includes satellite hardware and electronics, robotics, performance cycling, suspension and components, hardware for chemical lasers and cryogenic systems, juvenile products including strollers and wagons, and a carbon fiber exoskeleton for the Incredible Hulk character at Disneyland. Brady is the proud father of 2 girls who likes to create new and innovative things. In his downtime, he loves to ride his bike, and he's most proud of the innovative products he's created. Brady is currently the Vice President of Engineering at Veer Gear, a company that helps children get outside and into the wild by designing products with parents in mind. Brady started Veer Gear in 2017, combining his experience designing mountain bike equipment and juvenile strollers. The Veer Cruiser was the first product released by Veer, and it revolutionized the traditional children's wagon for a modern world, giving parents a better vehicle to transport their children and outdoor gear in rugged environments. In today's show, we discuss the innovative design choices that made the Veer Cruiser a new product to the world of outdoor equipment, and the hurdles of independently designing a product without the benefits of a large company at your back. Let's get into it. Hey, Brady, welcome to the show.
Hey, Troy. Nice to see you.
So I started Impulse 25 years ago with only 3 years of experience in product development. Tell us how you got into product development.
Well, after college, I moved to Los Angeles from Ohio to work in aerospace. And I was working on satellite products, and my hobby at the time, and still, was cycling, largely mountain biking at the time. And I came across the opportunity to work for a mountain bike suspension company called Answer Products. So I took that job and turned my passion into my career. Throughout that process, I learned to love, I learned how much I love product development and making and inventing. And actually, the best thing is when you get to use your own product that you designed and developed. So
Sure.
there's no greater pleasure than bombing down a trail on suspension that I made.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what's your current role and what kinds of products do you develop?
Current role is VP of Engineering at Veer Gear, and that's a company that Andrew, Nick, and myself started in 2017. And what we make is gear for families. What that means is strollers, wagons, making coolers, beach shade, beach playpens, chairs, wide variety of things that a parent family will use pretty much anywhere they go. So the active family, we're making the products for them.
Very cool. So tell us about the product that you want to talk about today, and why did you choose that one in particular?
Sure. Well, that would be the Veer Cruiser, which is our hero product for Veer Gear. And it was the first product we launched in 2017. So that was a stroller wagon that was new to the world and a new category to the world. Andrew and I both used to work for Graco, and so we knew each other there and are very familiar with the juvenile products and what it takes to engineer and what it takes to bring one to market. That being said, of course, starting a company and bringing a capital-intensive product to market is no small feat.
Sure. So tell us a little bit more about the product. Like, what are some of the key features or innovations or just things that differentiate it from other things in the market?
Well, everyone's probably familiar with the typical folding wagon. That would be what we call the accordion style wagon, where you got the front and back and they come together just like an
Hmm.
accordion.
Hmm.
Uh, we didn't do that. We created a wagon that folds flat. And what's innovative about it, of course, is it's sort of two frames. When it's open, you have an upper rim that gives a lot of structure. And this upper rim allows us to attach items to the wagon, such as an infant car seat, um, canopies. It turns into a bassinet with it as well. But we also, the methodology of folding and the methodology of the way the consumer interacts with it, we applied for a handful of patents, and they were all approved within a couple months.
Hmm.
Which anybody who's dealt with the U.S. Patent Office would be like, well, it never gets done in a couple months.
Right, right.
If you get it done in 5 years, you're doing pretty good. And the reason was, and we asked actually, is like, hey, what's going on? Why did this get approved so quickly? And they said, well, nothing else like this. So we created a whole new category, a whole new classification of products in the U.S. Patent Office from this product. That was that innovative from their perspective.
Yeah, that's awesome. Were there any like different or interesting technologies or materials or methodologies that you guys used or discovered while you developed the product?
Well, this is where, as the engineer on the product, background comes into play a lot. My background coming from the performance sporting goods business and then into the juvenile products world. And so much of making a stroller was always about plastic and trying to keep costs low and rivets.
Hmm.
Well, we didn't really want to do that. I wanted to make a really robust frame, or what I call the foundation of the wagon. So I leaned on my background with frames and basically bicycle frames. So our frame is very similar. If you look at it and some of the details of the design, you can see the similarities in the call it a cousin to a bicycle. So my sporting goods background influenced a lot of the design decisions. So I wouldn't call that like new materials or anything. It's just thinking differently about how to
Hmm.
make a juvenile product.
Interesting. So we've helped design literally thousands of products, and every one of those journeys has been a little bit different. So walk us through the journey of developing this product. Like, what were all the steps involved to get from idea to product on the shelf?
Well, that's always a meandering path. I always say to people when they see the final product, it's like it's so easy to see how it was a good idea when the product's done. But of course, from idea to product is never a straight line. It's a bunch of meandering, and you think you got a good idea, and you go down this one street. You get so far, and you recognize that there's a better way, and you come back.
Sure.
So there was no didn't do anything different. So this was largely done in 2015, 2016. So 3D printing was not readily available for the home
Hmm.
consumer or home designer. So we had to use a lot of machine shops and that kind of stuff, which is expensive. So minimize that to the maximum because we were self-funded at that
Sure.
time. Uh, I would say it's just the same thing. Try to start with the system design and then attack the subsystems and then bring it together. And you get a little bit of that iterative process because you got to figure out how the frame folds. Well, first you start with the system. How big is it? All that fun stuff. And
Sure.
then what are the primary systems that have to be engineered? And you try to attack each of them individually, put them together, and then iterate. And it's always thought about making a little shelf on the wall here at our office of some of the early prototypes. Because the early
Yeah.
prototypes, as I'm sure you can attest, never look like the final product.
Yeah. 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 That would
Especially when you're
definitely,
making, go ahead.
I was just going to say that would definitely be interesting.
Yeah. Especially when you're making something new, right? A lot of times when you got a product that you're sort of using as a baseline or a reference, well, then it's a little bit easier because someone's sort of giving you a direction to head.
Right.
But
Right.
when you got to figure out all those directions yourself, it is a little more challenging.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of reference strollers and, it's like, oh, well, we have this fold from 2 years ago. Let's use that fold and put some new features and benefits on it. That's a whole different project than we're
Yeah.
starting from scratch and we're going to design this literally from the ground up. So,
Yeah. Exactly.
so what the timeline look like for the project?
Well, so the first prototype actually started in 2014. Got the first prototype probably, let's just call it January 2015. And then March 2016 is when we started looking for suppliers. Found a supplier in March of 2016. And then we were shipping product August 2017. So basically all of 15, 16, and 2/3 of 17s. So call it 3 years from idea to shipping ground up new product.
Okay. And like that whole time was spent design, prototype, design, prototype, design, prototype.
No, this was all sort of done on a part-time basis.
Oh,
So you
okay.
had that going on too.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
It was
I mean, it was design prototype, but it wasn't like 100%, 40, 50, 60 hours a week kind of thing.
No, yeah, no.
Okay. Got it. So tell us about the team that put this together. How many people were involved and, what were their roles?
Well, it was Andrew Bowman, who it was his idea and founded the company. He brought me on, so I engineered it. And then we had Launch helped us with some of the design on what it would look like and some color studies. And so I don't know if you know them. That was Jason Began and Neil Varmanoff.
Okay.
So they helped with the ID side of it. That's
You said the
pretty much
Launch. That's the name.
Launch product development.
Okay.
They're based out of Georgia here.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Cool.
Small team.
So literally like what, 3 or 4 people? Like,
Well, pretty much me, but they helped making, because I'm not an ID guy, so
okay.
they made it look cool.
You made it work and they made it look good.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's pretty much the way to say it.
Yeah. Cool. We get that a lot too. Like we make it work, but other people make it look good. So, yeah. So what were some of the key milestones or achievements that you and the team reached during the development?
Well, I'd say the big milestone that took it from out of the category of something we want to do to something we are doing is when we found our supplier and we started really making rapid progress. So that's when, up to that point, we had a functional prototype. We knew exactly what we were doing and how we were going to do it, but we still had to cross the T's and dot the I's on the design. And so they helped on that a lot and making the tooling to actually make functional product. But the key milestone was starting with the supplier and getting them to buy into it, which was another significant task.
Interesting. So that kind of leads into my next question. I mean, like I said, we've been involved in designing thousands of products. There's always some kind of challenge that comes up. What was the biggest challenge for you and your team, like developing this?
Well, I think the one thing that you always got when you build a prototype and you got the old crap moment. So we did have one old crap moment where we thought maybe the whole thing would just fall down.
Hmm.
And that was in the juvenile products industry. One of the challenges is, of course, safety. Parents always assume safety, but as a designer engineer, we have to ensure safety. And so we made one of our prototypes when we found an issue with a fundamental problem with the design that at that time, where it created a crush for a child's hands.
Hmm.
Set us back a couple months, but of course, we obviously found a solution. But I would say that was probably the biggest challenge, and followed by finding a supplier. Andrew and I spent a week in Asia going from factory to factory, and that was an educational experience, because it's one thing when you go to a factory as a member or an engineer from a larger company,
Hmm.
because you immediately have standing if you're an engineer at a large company.
Sure.
But if you're just two guys traveling around Asia with a big box and a prototype, you don't get the same amount of attention.
Interesting.
And so I wouldn't say we were blown off, but we were blown off.
Yeah. Interesting. I've like in all the years of doing this, I've never heard that. That's really interesting.
Well, yeah, it's one thing, if you're going to make say a phone case, right? It's a single part.
Hmm.
Very easy to find a vendor to do that. But when you're going to make an item with hundreds of parts and you got to
Sure.
invest, $500 to $700,000 in tooling,
Yeah.
well, any supplier that's willing to take that on has to be willing, or has to understand that it may very well go south, right?
Right.
So,
Interesting. So you've mentioned prototyping several times. What kind of prototyping processes did you use during the development?
well, at the time, it was largely machine shops and prototype houses based out of Asia because they were more affordable.
Okay. Like a lot of CNC stuff or 3D printing?
Largely some CNC, but largely this is all based on tube bending, tube welding, and then 3D printing or CNC machining of plastic
Okay.
items that would emulate an injection molded part.
Yeah. Cool. So shifting gears a little bit before we wrap up, what are some of the trends that you see kind of emerging in product development based on your experience and the things you've seen?
Well, so it accelerates largely because of 3D printing. It doesn't really change the product development process in my way of thinking or the way we do things, but it allows you to get to the solution faster, because I can hit print and have a part tomorrow rather than go through the whole order process and have a part in 2 or 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, that allows you to make more mistakes or fix your mistakes faster, depending on your perspective.
Sure.
So obviously the 3D printing is the biggest thing, I think. I would love to see more domestic manufacturing come back. Back when I was in Los Angeles, everything I could do within like a 10 or 20 mile radius from our factory. Everything was domestically made, and that was just in the 25 years ago.
Sure.
And I think part of that, if that comes back, then that will be more of the acceleration to get product to market faster. And what that also allows you to do as a product developer or as a company is to take a little bit more risk, because if your manufacturing hub is close to your inventory or your market, well, then you can have a smaller inventory, so you can have greater cash flow to do more.
Sure.
Right? If you got to buy a lot of inventory from Asia, your money is tied up. And so
Yeah,
your ability to do stuff is constricted to a certain degree.
sure. It's tied up and sitting on the water.
Yes.
Do you, do you are you hopeful, or do you think like we might get some of that back in the States, some of the manufacturing?
I think between the States and Mexico, it's certainly I think it will. Uh, Probably more so in Mexico than in the States, but it
Sure.
depends on what we're talking about. Obviously, the automation and everything is key to being able to do most anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be awesome if we could get, you know, cost competitive production here in the States, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, well, and then when it wasn't that many years ago we were paying $20,000 to $25,000 to ship a container.
Yeah.
So that's a lot. Of course, that'll kill the business long term. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of money tied up in inventory and shipping that can be redeployed, even for higher labor.
Yeah. 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 It'll be interesting to see where all that goes.
I
Um,
think so.
yeah. If you could go back in time and change one thing about developing the product that you've been talking about, what would it be?
About the Veer Cruiser,
Yeah.
well, that's always a question to be asked. Well, I guess the answer to that question is things I've already addressed. So a lot of that is focusing more on service and the ability to rework an item.
Hmm.
So the original product used a lot of rivets that we have since replaced with bolts so that a consumer can repair, replace. So, a typical juvenile stroller or something, obviously parents don't care to keep those. When
Hmm.
your kids are out of strollers, the stroller goes away. But a wagon is a wagon.
Right.
You can use a wagon no matter what age you are. So
Sure.
as your kids grow out of the wagon as a stroller wagon, it's still a useful tool for you around the house or whatever.
Take it to the ball
Um,
field, whatever. Yeah.
yeah, so then that makes it being serviceable is more important than not, especially if you're spending a significant amount of money for the wagon. It's a shame to throw it away if something goes wrong. So
Sure.
serviceability would be the answer to your question.
Cool. So, you've had a pretty extensive career in product development, and reflecting on all of that, all the challenges and successes and everything you've seen. What words of wisdom would you share with somebody looking to make an impact in the product development industry?
Get your hands dirty, do stuff, um, fix cars. Don't sit behind a computer and try to learn everything. Get out there and actually do something, build something, whether it's wood, whatever. Use your hands, understand how machinery works, understand how to make stuff, including electronics, not just mechanics.
That's good stuff. Yeah. So awesome. This has been great. Is there anything before we wrap up? Is there anything else you want to mention with regards to the cruiser, or just product development in general?
No, I think maybe a plug, goveer.com.
That was
Check
my
out
next
our
question, is
product.
where can we find more about it? So you said goveer.com.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll make sure to put that in the notes down below. And anything else that you wanted to mention or talk about before we wrap up?
No, maybe you could expand a little bit about some of your stories.
Which ones?
Well, it's like you've made hundreds of products. What was your most interesting one?
Oh, wow. I think I would have to go back to this would be like what, over 20 years ago. There was a swing a juvenile swing that I worked on, and literally a guy sat right here next to me. He was the inventor of the swing, and we worked on like all these pulleys, and we had fishing line and like all kinds of things, just trying to work out a very efficient swing, basically drive mechanism. Um, that was one of the, at least from an early young engineer, didn't know very much.
Sure.
That was one of the most exciting things I worked on. And then probably the most, I don't know, interesting or exciting is the right idea, but have you heard of the Cord Buddy?
The what?
The Cord Buddy.
Cord Buddy.
Yeah.
Uh-uh.
So it's a device that you put on the neck of a guitar, and it's got four buttons, and those buttons, you push the button and it creates a chord. So to play a D chord, you push a button, and then if you play a G chord, you push a button. And so the guy that developed that or came up with it, his name's Travis Perry. He ended up being on Shark Tank and got a deal, and all this stuff. And we were just he's just a good old boy from Southern Alabama, and was like, hey, can you help me develop this? And we're like, sure, we'll help you out. And he ended up getting a deal. And yeah, I've got all kinds of stories about that product. Actually launched on Shark Tank in January, like early February of 2012, which is when the Super Bowl was in Indianapolis.
Okay.
And Mark Cuban was in town. And again, making a long story short, we got down to where Mark Cuban is doing a viewing party, and I've got a Cord Buddy in my hand. And I said, hey, can you sign that? And he looks at me, he's like, where'd you get that? I'm like, I designed it. And he's kind of like, no, you didn't. I'm like, I helped Travis design it. And he takes us back into the, the VIP area, and, we just sit there and, talk for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, and just had a good time. And yeah, so that's probably the coolest, result of a product we helped design. So, but yeah, yeah.
So is that still on the market?
Oh yeah, it's still on the market. Yeah, you could Google it right now. I'm sure it's cordbuddy.com. Yes.
It's interesting. So the point is to learn how to play guitar, right?
Yeah. So Travis's whole point, he was a teacher. He actually played guitar. He was like on tour with Garth Brooks and all that stuff. But the hard part is you have to form a chord and strum. And he's like, well, if I could take one of those two out, you can learn faster. So instead of learning to form the chord, you strum, right, and push a button to form the chord. And then eventually, once you learn to strum, one of the key features of the design was, okay, now you take the D tab out and you form the D tab with your fingers and do the other fingers with the button and progress. And then you take the next tab out and the next tab out. And the next thing you know, you're playing all four chords on your own. Wow. So it's kind of a learning, teaching device.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I like it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So
yeah, no doubt.
Well, cool. This has been awesome. Anything else we should know about or talk about, or?
No, it's just engineering. It's takes you all over the place.
Yeah.
So it's a great career to be in, I think. Very, interesting. Your story made me think of one when I was at, it's like, what interests me most about anything is just curiosity, right? It has to be interesting and get bored quickly.
Sure.
So I did this one job. I was at Boeing working on a chemical laser. So they were putting a chemical laser in the C-130 aircraft for the SOCOM is what it was. And so it was a tactical laser to, fire at people on the ground from the air.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty interesting just from the complexity of that, and, putting a chemical plant on an aircraft. And we were using, so we used, liquid helium to cool it. So it had a liquid helium circuit and liquid chlorine, liquid iodine, and then liquid hydrogen peroxide which from like what you buy at the grocery stores, I think 0.2%. This
Okay.
was 100%. And so
Oh,
if
wow.
it gets exposed to the atmosphere, they like immediately explode.
Yeah.
So, whole bunch of different challenges, and that's what I like is always having problems to solve that you have to think and research, and it's not just doing the same thing over and over again. Every
Sure.
day is different.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a very interesting career.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, great. It's been great talking to you. I appreciate you doing this. And like I said, I'll put the notes for where they can then look at the cruiser online in the show notes. And we'll talk to you soon.
Excellent. Sounds good, Troy. Thank you.
To learn more about Impulse and how we might be able to help you, visit impulseproductdevelopment.com.